A few years ago, a highly disturbing entry was posted on the famous Let's Not Meet subreddit. The original poster's account has since been deleted for good reason, but the digital footprint of their terrifying adolescent discovery remains. The post detailed an exploration gone incredibly wrong, set against the quiet backdrop of the UK countryside. The post read, "I grew up in North Wales, UK, an area known for its stunning natural landscapes, but notorious for its sheer lack of things for teenagers to do. When your daily routine mostly involves herding animals, harvesting crops, or picking fruit, curiosity becomes a dangerous fuel. It's only a matter of time before a teenager snaps out of sheer boredom. My friends and I often found ourselves wandering the sparsely populated countryside and coastline. There's a road with two separate carriageways running right along the coast from Wales to England, with active train tracks running alongside it, occasionally passing overhead via small cement bridges. One night a few years ago, 3 friends and I decided to explore one of those bridges, where the train passed overhead. When we reached it, we noticed a heavy manhole cover situated near the tracks. Upon closer inspection, we believed it led to some kind of access room. Intrigued, we tried to pry it open, but without tools, we couldn't budge it. So we returned the following night, fully prepared. Unbolting the cover wasn't easy. We had to work incredibly quietly because the train tracks were right next to us. We weren't close enough to be physically endangered by the trains, but we were close enough that the conductors could easily spot us and raise the alarms, which would definitely mean the police. Surprisingly, it didn't take long. We lifted the heavy steel disc and wasted no time climbing down the rusted ladder, completely blind to what was waiting below. Once we reached the bottom, we moved deeper into the structure. At this point, we were completely confined inside a narrow, claustrophobic passage leading into the main interior area of the bridge. We were perplexed. We had always assumed it was just a solid concrete bridge. If we hadn't found that manhole, we never would have guessed an interior space existed at all. We endured a torturous journey, squeezing and crouching through whatever space we could find, scraping our stomachs against the rough walls as severe claustrophobia slowly crept up on us. The distance from end to end was far longer than expected. However, at the halfway point, we found a small sliver of comfort. Narrow gaps in the concrete floor allowed us to look down and see the road passing beneath us. At that moment, it was still just an adventure. It was uncomfortable and cramped, but manageable. That was about to change. Just before passing the halfway mark, one of my friends stopped, claiming he could see something faintly illuminated in the distance at the far end of the tunnel. Hesitant but curious, we unanimously agreed to check it out. That turned out to be a terrible decision. I was the first to reach the end of the narrow walkway. The dread I felt in that moment was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Tucked away in the darkest corner of the bridge was a makeshift room. There was a single foldable chair facing the concrete wall. Taped to that wall was a partially torn page from a newspaper or magazine, showing a fully nude woman in an erotic pose. But I can't even refer to it as a normal erotic picture, because the woman's eyes had been violently removed from the page, as if someone had repeatedly taken a knife to them. Directly below the defaced picture, resting on the dirty concrete floor, was a bloody condom. When we saw this, we left as fast as humanly possible, desperate not to run into whoever was responsible for what we had just stumbled into. It felt like an active crime scene. When we crawled back to the ladder, every one of us silently prayed the manhole hadn't been resealed. Luckily, it was still open, and we scrambled out into the night. Naturally, people on Reddit quickly began speculating on what the boys had actually stumbled into. Some wondered if this was simply the work of a homeless person seeking shelter, or perhaps local teenagers pulling a crude prank. However, neither of these theories made much sense. No person looking for shelter would drag a heavy steel manhole cover over themselves to sleep in a suffocating, pitch-black concrete crawl space with no bedding. As for the potential teenage prank theory, why would they leave behind a bloody condom and deface the eyes of the photograph with a knife? But there were some more reasonable theories as well, stating that the tunnel was being used as a blind by a dangerous predator. Someone could use the gaps in the concrete floor to safely watch the road and the unsuspecting cars passing below, retreating to the end of the tunnel to indulge in dark, violent fantasies. A comment from one user quickly rose to the top, offering a chilling psychological breakdown of the scene. The combination of the gouged-out eyes and the bloody condom points directly to a highly disturbed individual escalating their behavior. Removing the eyes from an image is a classic psychological manifestation of a desire to dehumanize a subject, removing their identity to view them purely as an object of aggression. The fact that this was set up with a single chair means this person sits there for hours, completely isolated, feeding this obsession. You didn't just find a weird hideout, you likely found the staging area of someone working up the nerve to commit a very real, very violent crime. You are incredibly lucky the owner wasn't down there when you were. After further questioning from other users regarding why the boys didn't contact the authorities, the OP shared additional details about the situation, clarifying their mindset at the time. Edit. People have been asking why we didn't just call the police immediately. The truth is, we were just naive teenage boys. Where we lived was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and any kind of police activity would draw massive attention. We were terrified of getting in trouble for trespassing near the active train tracks. In hindsight, I fully admit it would have been wiser to report it, because it was clearly not the behavior of a healthy-minded person. I actually did return to the location multiple times over the next few months, standing near the tracks during the day to see if I could spot anyone coming or going. I was hoping to have something to update this thread with, but I never saw anyone, and eventually, I realized that investigating this myself wasn't going anywhere. It was better to stay alive than to risk my own life trying to confront whoever built that room. However, this additional information made the Reddit community even more concerned for the OP's safety. Users continuously pointed out that returning to the scene of a potential violent offender's hideout was essentially a death wish. If the individual realized their sanctuary had been discovered, they might have been actively waiting for the intruders to return. Unfortunately, not long after posting this final update, the OP permanently deleted their Reddit account. They never posted any new updates on whether the police were eventually involved, or if anything ever came of the terrifying bridge room. Given their complete silence over the years, it is highly unlikely we will ever learn the true identity of the monster living inside the bridge. On a seemingly ordinary day in 2016, Reddit user ButcherYourFace2000 made a deeply unsettling post on an Ask Reddit thread, seeking to share a story about a gym teacher so bad he might just be the worst one in history. The post read, "I had this gym teacher in middle school named Mr. Lyons. He didn't seem like someone who would cause trouble. He was in his mid-50s, always smiling and incredibly popular with the staff. Other teachers thought he was just a passionate educator who wanted to see kids reach their potential. But then out of nowhere, he came up with a strange idea. He wanted to add yoga lessons to his morning gym classes. It didn't make much sense why he suddenly cared about yoga, but Mr. Lyons gave this massive speech to the administration about how it improves focus and flexibility. He made it sound so great that the school agreed to give it a try. Little did they know, Mr. Lyons had an evil reason for bringing yoga into the gym. He wasted no time starting the sessions, but soon, things got weird. He began playing favorites, especially with the female students. He spent most of his time helping the girls with their poses while ignoring the boys completely. Then, there were the specific yoga poses he picked. His absolute favorite was the downward dog. If you've seen it, let's just say it's not exactly something a group of 6th graders should be doing in front of a grown man. But somehow, things got even weirder. A few weeks in, Mr. Lyons convinced the school to let the girls wear skirts to gym class, while the boys stuck with shorts. And then came the strangest part. He planned a trip to the beach for swimming lessons. At the beach, he kept going in and out of the changing rooms. No one knew what he was up to. Because he was an experienced teacher with a spotless reputation, no one suspected anything bad was going on. If the OP's story was true, it painted a deeply alarming situation regarding a massive failure by the school administration. However, most users remained skeptical, and as time passed, people began questioning the logistics of the story. wondering if it was just an exaggerated memory or an internet hoax. For instance, several users pointed out significant inconsistencies in how the OP described the school's dress code, stating, "Yeah, I'm calling BS on this. What school board just approved skirts for gym class? That is a massive liability and makes zero sense." "Same," another user replied. "I've worked in administration for 10 years, and there is no way a teacher just unilaterally changes the PE uniform to skirts without parents rioting." "The changing room part raised a flag for me too," wrote another sleuth. If he was constantly going in and out of the changing rooms at a public beach with students, a chaperone or lifeguard would have reported him immediately. A few days later, however, Butcher Your Face 2000 returned to Reddit with a chilling update, and somehow, things had grown even more disturbing than anyone in the comments had predicted. I wish I could say this was just a weird memory or that I was exaggerating, but I'm not. In just one day, all of Mr. Lyon's secrets were exposed. In 2016, he made the news, and not for a good reason. He was accused of secretly filming students while they changed. To do it, he allegedly used a hidden camera disguised as a pen. At first, people didn't believe it. How could someone like Mr. Lyons do something so awful? But then, he confessed. The OP continued to explain the horrifying depths of the investigation. His confession revealed even more disturbing secrets. The yoga lessons were never about helping his students. Mr. Lyons kept the hidden camera pen in his pocket, recording the students while pretending to help them with their poses. He was doing the exact same thing at the beach. But he wasn't just keeping the videos for himself. He was selling the footage on the dark web to make money. This was absolutely insane. Some people in the thread were left completely speechless, while others tried to dig up the final legal outcomes. I know this might be far-fetched, but could the administration have known and tried to cover it up at first? The fact that he got away with the skirt rule and the beach trip means someone had to be signing off on these massive red flags, one user speculated. Eventually, the police had caught on to his digital footprint on the dark web, arresting Mr. Lyons and putting a definitive end to his crimes. While the exact court verdict remains unclear to the Reddit community, one thing was certain: Mr. Lyons didn't get away with it. Unfortunately, shortly after posting this horrifying conclusion, the thread was locked by moderators, leaving the community reeling from the dark truth of what happened in that gym class. In October 2020, a post went viral on the True Scary Story subreddit. The title was only 7 words, but it instantly grabbed everyone's attention. "I went to a serial killer's lair." Let's call the author of this story Joe. "Hello everyone, I've been holding on to this story for decades, and I'm finally ready to share it." Back in the 1990s, the internet was a very different place. I spent a lot of time in online chat rooms, using them as a makeshift dating app to meet new people. I flared this as a true encounter because it happened over 20 years ago, and while I never filed a police report, the aftermath still haunts me. I had recently been telling a friend about this, and they encouraged me to post it here to see if anyone else in my area experienced something similar. I'm interested in any insight you all might have, as I truly just want to satisfy some morbid curiosity. I'm positive any statute of limitations on whatever he was planning is up, and I'm not interested in reporting something so circumstantial to the police now. Now, onto the story. Eventually, I started chatting with someone named Slim Guy 65. Our conversations were entirely on the public message board, so everyone could see our interactions. He seemed like a great guy, funny, interesting, and kind. But out of nowhere, I received an anonymous email warning me about him. It read, "My friend met this Slim Guy 65 from the message board, and the guy really hurt him. I don't want this to happen to anyone else." My friend tried to tell the police, but they wouldn't do anything. "I see you talking to him, so just be careful." I was spooked and asked for more details, but the sender never replied. Weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. When Slim Guy 65 asked to hang out in person during the daytime, I agreed. What could go wrong? I arrived at his apartment and was greeted by a soft-spoken man in his 40s. He didn't look threatening at all. However, as soon as I stepped inside, I realized the house was abnormally empty. There was almost no furniture, and the floors were spotless. He claimed he was just taking care of the place for someone else. Then, he walked over and locked the door with a deadbolt. I panicked and asked him to unlock it, forcing him to leave the keys on the counter. To lighten the suffocating tension, he offered me a tour. Things only got weirder. The kitchen had no dining table, only a long steel table resembling one from a morgue. He claimed the house used to be a doctor's office. The rooms were pitch black, windows shut, and nearly every door had a keyed deadbolt. By the time we reached the bedroom, I looked him in the eye and asked, "What is it that you want to do here?" He panicked, his words jumbling together. I immediately turned around and walked out as fast as possible. Edited to add, as I drove away, I seriously debated going to the police. But what could I say? I went to a creepy guy's house, and he had weird furniture? It wasn't enough to make a report. I kept it to myself for years. What makes this story so terrifying is the chilling validation that came years later. In the early 2000s, a news story revealed that several men from Joe's area had gone missing, all of whom were looking for dates with other men. One was eventually found murdered. Joe's heart sank as he realized he likely walked into a serial killer's trap. While he may never know the absolute truth, the question of how close he came to death still haunts him. In late 2023, a user made a chilling confession on the Let's Not Meet subreddit with a disturbing title that read, "One innocent conversation at summer camp led to a 4-year stalking nightmare." About 4 years ago, a 13-year-old girl, let's call her Kimberly, attended what was supposed to be a fun, harmless summer camp. One of the camp activities involved practicing social skills by going into a nearby town to ask strangers survey questions. It sounded completely innocent, but for Kimberly and her friend Anne, it was the start of a relentless terror. After interviewing a few locals, they approached an older man. He was overly friendly, flipping the script to ask them deeply personal questions about their names, hometowns, and hobbies. Thinking nothing of it, the girls answered honestly. A few days later, the digital harassment began. Both girls noticed their Instagram notifications blowing up from an account named Ed Piss. He left highly inappropriate comments, calling them hot, and sent disturbing pictures of himself. Terrified, they blocked him, and the account was permanently deleted. They thought they were in the clear, but the nightmare was just beginning. When the school year started, the stalker reappeared on Facebook under the name Ed Patus, spamming their photos once again. The girls immediately told their parents, who contacted the police. Unfortunately, the authorities were completely unhelpful, simply advising the girls to quit social media if they wanted the harassment to stop. For the next 2 years, Ed relentlessly created new accounts. Then, the stalking escalated to the physical world. The girls began spotting a white truck following them to school and the park. One afternoon, while Kimberly visited her mother's workplace, the truck pulled up. Kimberly locked eyes with the driver, and her heart sank. It was the same older man from the summer camp. Fast forward to 2023, Kimberly was now 17. One day, while driving through town, that familiar white truck appeared in her rearview mirror. It didn't just follow her, it actively chased her. The driver honked, flashed his lights, and rode her bumper. Panicked, Kimberly sped through red lights and took sharp turns, finally losing him after 25 agonizing minutes. Shaking, she called Anne, only to hear her friend crying on the other end. That exact same day, a red car had tried to force Anne off the road. Update 9:30 p.m. We were terrified they were coming back to finish the job, Kimberly wrote in a follow-up post. But then we saw the local news. A report just aired about an attempted kidnapping in the next town over. The suspects? 2 men driving a white truck and a red car. The results exposed the terrifying truth Kimberly had feared. Ed wasn't acting alone, and she and Anne weren't his only targets. Thankfully, the suspects were arrested before they could strike again. After reading this update, the Reddit community flooded the comments with relief, urging the girls to ensure the police linked their case to the arrested men. Kimberly later posted one final, reassuring update. It took years to get rid of them, But the police finally connected the dots. Now we don't have to worry about those men anymore. To think that this story would have taken a much darker turn if the police hadn't intercepted that white truck and red car in the neighboring town. On the 13th of December, 2025, Reddit user fan5835 posted a deeply unsettling entry on a popular advice subreddit. The underlying fear in her post resonated with many, as it detailed a terrifying invasion of privacy within the walls of her own home. It read, "I might be being watched today. When I was about to jump in the shower, I heard an Android phone notification go off. I have an iPhone. The sound came from within the room, and it was far too clear and audible to be coming from another room in the apartment. What truly concerns me is that this is not the first time I have heard a phone notification go off while I'm in the bathroom naked before a shower. There has been one other instance, and it was an Android notification that time as well. After I heard it today, I looked around the bathroom trying to find a hidden phone somewhere, but nothing. I didn't dig super hard, because, being the first time, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid." She went on to provide crucial context about her living situation and a disturbing past event. "I should mention, I don't live by myself. I'm a 21-year-old girl, and I live with my parents and my uncle in an apartment. So it is definitely possible for someone to purposefully leave a phone in the bathroom. A couple of months back, I was in my bedroom with one of the lights off, and I thought I saw a tiny blue dot coming from the bottom area of my closet. The only way I can describe it is a blinking light, but it only lasted for a second before it disappeared. I looked around my closet and found nothing. I'm a pretty laid-back person, so I honestly didn't think much of it, and just thought I was imagining it. But deep down, I know I actually saw and heard those things. Does anyone have any suggestions to find a hidden phone somewhere? As unfortunate as it is, cases involving hidden cameras and secret recordings are all too common, and similar stories frequently get posted across various Reddit communities. Most of them rarely reach a satisfying resolution. Outside of moving out or getting the police involved, there is often very little victims can do. It is a profoundly scary thought, living with the paranoia that someone within your own home, potentially a member of your own family, might be stalking you and invading your privacy in the worst way imaginable. Initially, many in the comments suggested that she might just be paranoid, while others offered practical advice, like using Bluetooth finder apps to sweep the room. Frustrated by the skepticism, the user provided a brief update, stating she would stop posting for a while because people accused her of lying for attention. She reiterated that her only goal was to find the device so she could gather undeniable proof and ensure whoever was responsible could not keep illicit videos of her. She noted she planned to stay with a friend and move out the following month. However, on December 15th, the situation escalated when she returned with a chilling breakthrough. Update: I found the phone. I heard it going off in the bathroom this morning and found it just looking out from the top of a shelf. It wasn't hidden at all. And I am telling you, the 2 times I looked before, I was looking on top of that exact same shelf, and it wasn't there. It had 2% battery on it, and then it died. Someone left it there on purpose this morning. This phone is my mom's old phone. I suspected my uncle, but I guess his personal phone and the burner in the bathroom share the same ringtone, so I'm not sure anymore." She further explained the agonizing lack of support from her inner circle. "Whenever I talk to anyone about this in person, I keep getting dismissed. I try to talk to my cousin and boyfriend about it, but they keep asking if I'm sure and saying no one has a reason to do that. This is very frustrating, and I don't know what to do anymore. The fact that I found the actual phone means I wasn't just hearing the sound carry over from another room. I 100% believe someone in this house is leaving that phone in there for malicious purposes. For now, I just put the phone back. There was no SIM card in it, and I don't know the password. I think they knew I started looking for it and deliberately left it out for me to find." People on Reddit quickly began analyzing the new details. Multiple users in the comments came to one of 2 grim conclusions. Either someone in the household was using the old device as a secret burner phone, or someone was actively using it to record the original poster in her most vulnerable moments. While both scenarios were deeply unsettling, the latter was undoubtedly the most nefarious. A comment from a highly concerned user quickly rose to the top, offering a blunt assessment of her situation. It's your uncle, cousin, or boyfriend, or a combination of them. What they're doing is highly illegal. If any of it is going out on the internet, even just sending an email qualifies as revenge porn. Take the battery out and snap a pic of the barcodes and numbers. There may be a way to find out who activated it. The fact that your cousin and BF are being dismissive of your concerns means, at best, they don't care about you. But more than likely, one or more of them is taking video of you nude. You deserve to be safe in your own home and not have your privacy violated. The final update from the OP came shortly after, in the form of a brief but decisive reply to this advice. "I know I broke up with my boyfriend after that happened," she revealed. "I guess a lot of people just don't think that's a big deal, which is insane to me. Sadly, I don't think there is anyone else to help me, but I am moving to a different state with a friend in August, so I'm just holding on till then." No further updates have been made since that final comment. However, as the community can assume from her closing remarks, she simply had to bide her time, counting down the days until August to finally escape a home that had completely stripped her of her privacy. 2 years ago, a post caught my attention on ours. It was a long read and led me down quite a rabbit hole, detailing a deeply unsettling and frustrating case of what appears to be severe police negligence. The post focused on the user's friend, Kyle Donovan, who went missing in June 2020. The tragic reality is that he could have been found alive if the authorities had acted differently. A missing persons report for Kyle was filed the day after he vanished in his hometown of Olathe, Kansas. Over a year later, his skeletal remains were discovered by a CACDOT employee. Despite officers telling Kyle's family they were 90% sure the remains were his, based on the items found near the body, DNA confirmation was agonizingly slow. Adding to the family's distress, police revealed that Kyle had made a 3-minute 911 call the night he disappeared. During that call, he clearly stated his location, but tragically, the police never dispatched a search party to find him. Furthermore, the authorities failed to connect the unresolved 911 call with the subsequent missing persons report, meaning the family was never informed of his actual location at the time of his disappearance. The family had been focusing their search efforts, searching on foot and using a drone, in an area where Kyle had told his brother he was before making the 911 call. They concentrated on a bridge over the Kansas River, even throwing an 80-pound feed bag off the bridge to study the current. The devastating irony is that the location of the bridge was within sight of where his remains were eventually found. If the police had simply shared the information from the 911 call when the missing persons report was filed, the family could have focused their search immediately on the correct area, and Kyle might have survived. It took a grueling 8 months after the discovery of his body for positive DNA identification to be completed. Adding to the confusion and suspicion, despite Kyle's urgent pleas during the 911 call that people were trying to kill him, the medical investigator ruled the cause of death as inconclusive. The case remains open but is not being actively investigated as a homicide, and police have refused to release further details, leaving the family desperate for answers and questioning why vital information is being withheld. The narrative also touched upon Kyle's potential mental health struggles. According to his family, he faced significant stress from his job, was in a volatile relationship, and had a history of drug use. He had previously experienced a bout of psychosis. His mother deeply regrets mentioning these potential mental health issues when filing the missing persons report, fearing it may have led investigators to dismiss or deprioritize his case. "I find it incredibly disheartening that so many cold cases I encounter are tainted by this apparent air of police negligence, and this case feels particularly egregious. While it's true that in Kansas, police are not legally obligated to respond to every 911 call, their response depending on the perceived severity, location, and available resources. Given that Kyle explicitly stated people were trying to kill him and that firearms were involved, it is deeply concerning that his call wasn't treated as a high-priority emergency." Much of the context surrounding the case came from the comments section. The original poster provided further details, explaining that Kyle had stopped at a coworker's house in a work truck, leaving behind his guns and money before walking away. He had called his brother from the 18th Street Expressway bridge, but then wandered toward the train yard near Bayard Avenue before making the 911 call. He had also been carrying random belongings, such as a lamp and books, possibly intending to stay with the coworker after leaving his wife. The family has received very little communication from the authorities beyond the previously unreleased 911 call. Numerous questions remain unanswered. What happened to Kyle's belongings? Whether the coworker was thoroughly investigated, and why so many elements of the case remain shrouded in mystery. Sadly, there has been only one major update in the past 2 years. The original poster later uploaded the entire 911 call online, with personal information redacted. They stated their belief that another person could be heard nearby during the recording, theorizing that Kyle may have been injured and hiding while placing the call. While he didn't explicitly say he was hurt, he repeatedly asserted that people were trying to kill him, and the poster believes he was trying to communicate his urgent need for help while remaining quiet. The poster also highlighted the context of the incident occurring during a period of heightened protests and unrest in Kansas City, suggesting a theory that the dispatcher might have feared the call was an attempt to lure officers into an ambush, though there's no evidence to support this claim. Since then, the poster has contacted private investigators and explored fundraising options to assist Kyle's family in pursuing an independent investigation. To add insult to injury, Kyle's family was denied access to the state's Victims of Violent Crimes Fund because his cause of death was ruled inconclusive, and there is no active murder investigation.